Namaskaram. Today I will talk about a very important topic, suicide and killings in Indian Army. Suicide is defined as intentionally taking one's own life. In military context, a soldier killing a comrade can be referred as fratricide. According to World Health Organization, more than 8 lakhs people commit suicide every year. Indian Armed Forces have been losing about 100 soldiers every year, either by suicide or killing by another soldier. Here, I will talk about the main causes of suicides and killings in the army personnel and various remedial measures. The statistics on suicides and killings revealed by Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence from 2003 to 13 are 1,606 suicides and 109 killings. As per the data tabled in Parliament, between 2011 and 18, there were 891 deaths by suicide. That is, Army 707, Navy 36 and Air Force 148. Over the period of 2001 to 21, suicides and killings remained unabated among forces. The average suicidal death in defense is 111 per year. The research studies shows that the suicides and killings in Indian Armed Forces are not only among the Jawans but also among the officers, including women. The findings of the Defense Institute of Psychological Research highlighted the need for the stress-busting measures in armed forces. Colonel P.K. Maharshi points out several stress-related issues in the Indian Army. According to the findings of United Service Institution of India, more than half of Indian Army personnel seems to be under severe stress. Major General Samay Ram, in his book Stress, Suicide and Fratricide in the Army, says Indian Army is losing men in suicides with heavy commitments in Jammu and Kashmir. The army is deployed because police and Central Reserve Police forces are ill-equipped and not fully trained. A study on stress-related issues in army by Colonel Dixit revealed that the individuals with repressive tendencies are prone to commit suicide, and those with aggressive attitudes suffering from chronic stress are prone to commit fratricide. Another study by me and Major Dr. Nalini found that out of 3 categories of the army personnel, such as officers, JCOs and Jawans, the officers had the highest mental strength and Jawans had the lowest mental health. The status, working environment, emotional stability, job satisfaction and positive outlook of officers may be better than that of JCOs and Jawans. Mental health of Jawans is low due to their conflict, financial burdens, work overload, and separation from the family. Soumya Kalia suggested in 2021 the need to improve mental health care and suicide prevention mechanisms in defense forces. As per the government, difficulty in tracking family problems like marital issues, financial concerns, property disputes may also contribute to the mental health strain of soldiers. As per study published in the Medical Journal of Armed Forces India by Surgeon Rear Admiral Pawar et al., 90% of patients admitted were experiencing some form of stigma, irrespective of age, rank, education, or mental condition. Many studies indicate low morale and poor mental health, which demands the immediate attention of the government. It is unfortunate that many recommendations given by the defense experts and psychologists were not implemented by the Ministry of Defense. There are 4 levels of suicidal risk factors such as low, moderate, high and severe. The risk factors of suicide and killings in soldiers are alcohol addiction or substance abuse, employment on menial tasks like latrine cleaning, family problems like lack of child, adverse life events like death of family member, extreme humiliation by seniors in front of juniors, Health problems or illness like cancer, denial of leave for important family events like marriage of sister, prolonged duty hours under stress and strain, social isolation, regular verbal insults by colleagues, strained interpersonal relations, conflicting social oblique environmental situations, groupism, sexual problems like unfulfilled sexual desire, mental problems like severe stress, anxiety, or depression, and adverse experiences like childhood abuse. Now, let us see the various types of suicide in Indian Armed Forces. They are planned suicide, impulsive suicide, assisted suicide, attempted unsuccessful suicide, completed suicide, and homicide with suicide. Important indicators or warning signs of suicide are feeling of helplessness, worthlessness, hopelessness, and sleeps too little or too much. Loss of interest in what was loved to do earlier and increased use of alcohol or drugs. Poor motivation, growing pessimism, and talks about suicide, death, and violence. Problem with the spouse or superiors and feels no reason to live. Sense of calmness and feeling of guilt, shame, and hatred. Significant mood changes, anxiety, depression, anger, rage, and irritability. Distributes property and prized possessions to colleagues and says goodbye. Withdraws from friends and family, relatives, and social gatherings to be left alone. Seeks to get access to guns, ropes, knives, razors, or pesticides. Let us see the prevailing causes of suicides and killings in the armed forces. Domestic and personal problems, marital discord, stress, and financial problems are the important causes of suicides in the armed forces as per the studies of DIPR. Family problems and land disputes at home are the causes as per the Ministry of Defense. Poor leadership, bullying by seniors, degradation of status in comparison to civil employees, severe work stress and refusal to grant leave even in genuine need are the causes as per the media and defense veterans. Major cause of stress among the army officers are overburden, commitments, frequent transfers, lack of fairness and transparency in promotions and postings, insufficient accommodation, and so on. Whereas among the PBOR, that is personnel below officer ranks, are excessive engagements, domestic problems, inadequate rest and recreational facilities, lack of dignity and conflict with the seniors as well as subordinates. The continuous separation from families, financial inequities, lack of liberty as enjoyed by other civilians, and poor welfare facilities. Difficult to support financially and provide quality education to their children due to meager salary, high cost of education, increasing cost of living, and rising inflation. The court of inquiry, summary of evidence, and court martial are allegedly used as a tool to harass complainants and victimize the accused rather than bringing them to justice. Strength of mental strength professionals in military hospitals is lower than the required. Military persons who frequently experience anxiety, depression, loss of emotional control in stressful situations has negative mental health symptoms. According to psychiatrist Dr. Yasir Rathar, mental health problems like depression, anxiety, and alcohol addiction are common in 90% of suicidal cases among the troops. Suicide associated with psychiatric disorders are bipolar disorders, major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, mood disorder, personality disorder, and anxiety disorder. Pent-up anger due to heated arguments with colleagues abuse by seniors, adverse working conditions, irritability, sadness, frustration, and a host of other reasons. Prolonged deployment of forces in high altitude field area and in dangerous environments like counterinsurgency makes the soldiers stressed, which may result in suicide or killing. Normally, armed forces personnel hide their mental problems. Referral to a psychiatrist for treatment is considered as stigma as it may affect their career including release from service. With the advancement of social network sites, tensions within the family keep the soldiers' minds occupied to a great extent while on duty. The existing bond of camaraderie between the officers and personnel below officers' rank is becoming tenuous due to lesser communication between them as the officers are overstressed with workload. The commanders keep the troops informed of the latest issues through Sainik Sammelans, and soldiers can seek remedy for grievances through Arzi report. If not satisfied, they can submit written complaints to the Chief of Army Staff, Navy or Air Force through non-statutory complaints and to the Government of India through statutory complaints. Most non-statutory and statutory complaints keep shuttling up and down on silly technicalities without getting any justice in time. Unfortunately, the above mechanism lost its credibility and has become defunct. If India remains united today, the credit goes to our armed forces and to the leadership of officers and junior leaders. Indian armed forces continue to be sole source of hope for our nation in adverse and critical circumstances. Therefore, every issue that affects the well-being of the armed forces personnel must be taken seriously. Major stressors responsible for suicide and killings in the armed forces are regimental bias, service-related bias, and favoritism in promotions. Communication gap between the officers and PBOR, which decrease the interpersonal relationships between them. Conflict over domestic issues and absence of family support. The soldiers are under tremendous stress as they are unable to solve their domestic problems such as financial, marital, property disputes and so on faced by their families. Inability to be with the parents and family during domestic emergencies weighs heavily on the minds of many soldiers. Degradation of status is another important issue. Unlike other civil services, Indian Armed Forces personnel are the only ones ready to sacrifice their life for the protection of India against her enemies. Even after that, since independence, the successive governments, pay commissions and bureaucrats have been degrading their status. Due to this reason, many armed forces officers and PBOR want to leave the job and join other lucrative jobs in civil. They decline from preferred career options of the educated and intelligent youth due to degradation of pay and allowances and status. The battle over status that our defense forces have been fighting against the bureaucrats of the MOD is an important aspect of lower the morale and fighting spirit of our soldiers. Serving in isolated, lonely and oxygen deficient high altitude field areas of the Himalayas affects the psychology and physiology of soldiers. Empowerment of women, equality of sexes and political expediency forced our government for the employment of women as officers in select arms and services like Army Medical Corps in 1992. Presence of women has created additional burden of safety and stress among male officers. Many male officers resent their additional workload as many tasks cannot be delegated to women. Failure of buddy system as it has been exploited by higher officials for selfish interests. False allegations against military personnel is another important aspect. making false allegations like molestation of women and misinformation campaigns against the army is common ploy of the militants and anti-national elements to win public sympathy while discrediting and demoralizing our soldiers. Every single case of allegation against soldiers has been thoroughly probed, and almost all of them have found to be false. Many soldiers wonder whether their bold anti-terrorist operations risking own life are worth the risk of getting embroiled in false court cases and losing self-respect. Humiliating comments are another issue. Most cases of killing a superior or a subordinate is the result of humiliating comments which triggers emotion of revenge in the already aggressive and frustrated soldier. Improper performance is the next one. Reporting system. Performance reporting system through annual confidential reports in the army does not consider the real worth of military personnel. The pen picture and figurative assessment in ACR hardly match. Due to favoritism by commanding officers, there is a tendency to overrate reports of some officers, and often some CEOs take revenge with an intelligent and hardworking officer by underrating in ACR and spoiling the chance of future promotional prospectus. This increases the stress and frustrations to officers. Inadequacy of grievance redressal mechanism is another aspect. Adequate attention is not being paid to this critical aspect by the armed forces as well as the MOD. Soldiers are discouraged to put up any complaints at junior levels, and officers are unable to know the real reasons of dissatisfaction of troops. RC reports and Sainik Sammelans lost its importance. The military secretary's branch, tasked to handle all complaints, has become insensitive, notorious for inaction, lack of empathy, and urgency. Handling of complaints by the MOD is even more pathetic. An effective grievance redressal mechanism is essential in the management of military personnel. Increasing court cases are next. The military personnel feel aggrieved when they are deprived of their rightful due, leading to loss of confidence in the fairness of the system, dissensions, and litigations. Over 1 lakh cases are pending in various courts and more than 15,000 cases in various high courts of India. It is demoralizing for the soldiers to see their disabled companions running in courts to get their legitimate dues. Leave policy discrimination is next. There have been instances of discrimination in allowing leaves to army personnel. There have been alarming reports like that of leave being denied for 10 months to many army personnel. Lethargic and anti-military functioning of MOD is another important aspect. A soldier's helplessness in solving property disputes back home with the neighbors and family members is demoralizing and stressful. This problem had been identified earlier, but little has been done except for every defense minister writing routine letters to chief ministers requesting sympathetic disposal of land disputes involving the soldiers. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defense had asked the MOD to make institutionalized arrangements in close coordination with the state governments, officials, and put in place a computerized mechanism to monitor progress of each complaint from defense services personnel or their family members. But nothing happened on the ground due to the lethargic and anti-military functioning of MOD. Low morale and unhappiness is another aspect. The MOD appears to be least bothered in raising the morale, improving the status, restoring the confidence, and ensuring the pride of our defense forces. The unauthorized tasks like cleanup trash left by tourists in the mountains being thrusted upon the army is highly demoralizing and must stop. Need to change leave travel concessions. Armed forces officers and their family members are authorized free travel on leave once in 2 years and PBOR once in every year. Officers with the Form D and PBOR with concession vouchers are allowed to travel by train and not by air, thus wasting precious leave of traveling. One rank, one pension has been a sore point of dissatisfaction among our soldiers and veterans. Modi government is the first government to implement the AROP, for which they deserve the praise. Overdoing on social functions in Army Wives Welfare Association is another important aspect. Activities on 5-star scale for visiting dignitaries has become an irritant. Peace station problems are also an important fact. Many suicide cases in Army have been taking place at peace stations due to heavy station commitments, expressive training exercises, and so on. Prolonged duty hours and overstretched functioning in counterinsurgency and counter-terrorism environment has been increasing stress levels of soldiers. They continue to serve in remote and dangerous environments for anti-militancy operations in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast that takes toll on their physical and mental health. Prolonged duty hours without adequate rest in conflict zones, away from families, under constant threat of enemy attack will increase stress and anxiety of soldiers. Rashtriya Rifle, that is RR battalions and counterinsurgency operations are on increase. As all RR battalions are deployed in high-risk insurgency-infected areas, soldiers are subjected to intense physical and mental stress. Many soldiers feel insecure while serving in RR units, miss the regimental bonding and camaraderie. Retirement at young age without alternative job is another factor. Retirement age of bulk of the soldiers are at 54 years, JCOs at 52 years, and Jawans at 42 years without suitable alternative job. They have to look after domestic responsibilities like children education and construction of houses. Shortage of officers is another major factor. This is increasing day by day, and increasing communication gap between the officers and PBOR and increasing stress. As per the 2019 report of Press Information Bureau, Indian Army is facing a shortage of over 7,399 officers against the authorized strength of 50,312. Indian Navy is facing a shortage of 1,545 officers against the authorized strength of 11,557, and the Indian Air Force is facing a shortage of 483 officers against the authorized strength of 12,625. This excludes Army Medical Corps, Army Dental Corps, and Military Nursing Service. Some Army units are functioning with 7 to 9 officers when they are authorized about 30 officers. Shortage of officers coupled with work overload make a deadly combination in which the officers have no time for the troops and family. Social inequalities and discrimination was also on rise. Social gatherings and informal interactions are encouraged in the services to promote cohesion among officers. Unfortunately, the senior officers and ladies remain confined to a separate VIP corner. Subordinate officers may consider such treatment as an insult to their self-respect. Stress due to overworkload is a very important factor. Many soldiers are suffering from work overload, fatigue, anxiety, depression, hypertension, heart diseases, psychosis, neurosis, and other related ailments. The commanders, to earn a good ACR, do not allow adequate leisure time to troops and continue to engage them on field exercises, demonstrations, training camps and field firing, which increase the stress of all ranks. Suppressed frustrations. Military is highly disciplined, hierarchical and restrictive environment deters sharing pent-up frustrations. When a soldier is facing all sorts of difficulties to serve his nation and countrymen, if some government bureaucrats do not even bother about his welfare, he starts questioning his commitment towards his profession and gets demoralized. Bottled up discontentment will not only increase the frustration and stress of troops but also threaten their emotional and psychological equilibrium. Troops are very sensitive to unfair and ill-informed criticism. They draw strength to face privations from the love and respect of their countrymen extended to them. They wonder if the nation recognizes their life-risking services and values them. Unjustified promotions is another important aspect. Merit, combat experience and management of troops should be the deciding factor for promotion, and increased politicization in the troop appointment should be stopped. Majority of paramilitary officers in BSF, CRPF, ITBP and police become one-star officer, that is DIG, but majority of colonels in army do not become one-star officer, that is brigadier. Unlike civilians, soldiers cannot switch jobs if not satisfied. The military service is a long-term commitment with high discipline and of restrictive environment. Any violation of discipline is punishable under Army Act. War fatigue is another aspect. Continuous participation in anti-militant operations and prolonged deployment in active field areas, highly dangerous terrains and critical situations are likely to increase the stress and war fatigue of soldiers. Now, let us see how to help a soldier in suicidal crisis. Firstly, establish 24 hours crisis hotline number in every army unit to help soldiers in suicidal crisis. Continue the support and stay in touch with a soldier in suicidal crisis. Ensure positive lifestyle changes like healthy diet, regular exercise, timely sleep and yoga. Help and support by mental health professionals will decrease the number of suicide cases. Make a safety plan like phone number of doctors or friends and follow during suicidal crisis. Make a treatment plan for psychiatric problems like yoga session and assist to follow-up treatment plan. Observe 10 September as World Suicide Prevention Day to increase general awareness against suicide. Reduce intake of antidepressants as it increases the risk of suicide in youth. Remove means of suicide like firearms, pills, knives, blades and other potentially lethal objects from the person. Soldiers with suicidal risk may not be able to control anger and hence be more positive and proactive in helping. Remedial measures already taken by the armed forces are, as recommended by the DIPR, to decrease stress among armed forces personnel or decrease the workload, rationalize the grant of leave, increase the pay and allowances, reduce the tenure of deployment, build up better interpersonal relations between the officers and men, conduct regular training programs in stress management and improve recreation activities. A few remedial measures already taken by the armed forces to reduce suicide and killings are introduction of mental health awareness during pre-induction training. Many officers have been trained to provide mental health as counseling to soldiers. Provision of better quality welfare like clothing, food, married accommodation and so on. The Army and Air Force established a Manasik Sahayata helpline for counseling. The Army has been conducting yoga and meditation classes and counseling by experts. The Indian Air Force has been organizing Mission Zindagi workshops and lectures. The Indian Army's Northern and Eastern Commands has instituted Milap and Sahyog to reduce stress. The Indian Navy has established mental health centers in Mumbai, Vishakhapatnam, Kochi, Port Blair, Goa, and Karwar. Now, let us see the preventive measures to reduce suicides and killings in army. Organizational level reforms. Act immediately on reforms recommendations by committees without delay in the MOD. Attract right kind of youth to join the defense services by carrying out an immediate cadre review to improve the rank structure, promotion policy, monetary benefits, and status. Avoid overdoing on social functions and reduce our activities. Boost up morale of the armed forces personnel with higher pay scales, better status, fair and fast promotions, limited duty hours, authorized workload, and adequate rest. Change the mindset of senior officers, improve the communication gap between the officers and other ranks. Conduct periodic lectures and workshops on stress management and counseling at unit and formation levels. Conduct tests like All India Psychometric Test for PBOR during recruitment. Create a healthy environment by providing best quality of rations, clothing, and welfare. Create more Manasik Sahayata helpline for troops to seek help from psychologists. Develop an efficient internal grievance redressal mechanism that will work well like feedback, suggestion, or complaint boxes without victimizing complainants. Grievance redressal mechanism need to be simplified for faster results. Employ adequate psychologists and counselors to improve the mental health and reduce stress of soldiers. Give top priority on medical and mental health facilities to serving soldiers, veterans, and their dependents. Implement fully the recommendations of DIPR such as decrease workload, reduce the tenure of deployment, increase the pay and allowances, measures to manage stress, and so on. Implement non-functional upgradation NFU to armed forces like that of IAS and allied services. Implement welfare measures like married accommodation, 100% in peace area and 50% in field area, and better facilities for children education. For example, admission, hostel accommodation, and scholarship. Improve the standard of living, nutritional food, hygiene, and recreational facilities. Increase the number of officers in units by increasing the intake of officers with higher pay scale. Making short service commission more attractive and by assuring second careers to them after release from military service. Launch a mobile application for complainants of soldiers with direct contact with the Ministry of Defense, bypassing the officers in command. Modify the leave travel facilities by authorizing all military personnel to travel free twice a year on leave with or without family by air and by train from duty station to hometown or place of separated family quarters and back. In addition, 3 sets of 50% concession vouchers for other ranks and Form D for officers should be allowed for travel by air as well as by train from duty station to home station or separated family quarters and back. Nursing assistants and junior leaders should observe the troops with high stress and take action to reduce it. Overall, the selection, training, and functioning of MOD bureaucrats and staff. Monitor their work output. Suspend the culprits who acts against the interest of armed forces and shift their officers from New Delhi to high-altitude field areas near formation headquarters. It will stop the anti-military functioning of MOD staff. Peace station problems of defense personnel can be solved by providing 100% family accommodation, reservation of more seats for their wards in educational institutions, lesser exercises, and peaceful life. Pending court cases pertaining to grievances of military personnel be disposed of through special fast-track courts. Physical training, parades, and organized games with troops must be made compulsory. Policy on induction of women officers should be regularly reviewed and modified. Post-requirement job worries of the military personnel can be solved by lateral placement without any loss of seniority and same status in paramilitary forces and other organizations. Prolonged duty hours and overstretched functioning need to be regulated with adequate rest and overtime allowance for overtime work above 8 hours. Promulgate directions of the central government to all state governments to look after the various problems of armed forces personnel as part of national interest. Provide suicide awareness information to all ranks and bodies. Identify the soldiers with potential suicidal risk or warning signs of suicides. Provide timely help to distressed families of soldiers, such as financial assistance, assistance in solving family problems, grant of more educational scholarships to their children, looking after war widows and war disabled through Adjutant General's branch. The Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare, that is ESW, should take care of the welfare of ex-servicemen. Raise the status of the armed forces by increasing the pay and allowances suiting to the risk and duties being carried out by them. Make government policy to ensure all possible help to soldiers and their families. Rather than banning the use of social media, make policy on its use by soldiers to counter the threat to national security. Recruit sufficient junior leaders and religious teachers and train them in basic counseling and stress management techniques. Redressal of grievances must be made simple, more responsive, fair, and faster. Reduce the workload, fatigue, and anxiety to cope up with stress. Reduce workload on units by outsourcing the maintenance of cantonments and similar tasks to civil agencies. Review, modify, and computerize the performance reporting system and ensure no favoritism in ACR, that is, Annual Confidential Report. Sensitize the commanders at all levels to solve administrative and health problems of military personnel. Sensitize the military leaders by conducting courses, group discussions, workshops on counseling and stress management on regular basis. Service conditions be made more attractive by enhancing pay and promotions at par with the civil services counterparts with similar service conditions and length of service. There is a need of cadre review to ensure faster promotions for commissioned officers and PBOR with a transparent promotion policy. Some ways to overcome the shortage of officers are: keep staff appointments underposted and reduce number of courses. Stop detailing officers as ADC to the President, Governors, and Formation Commanders. Ban the attachment of unit officers to Formation Headquarters and other extra-regimental duties. Station duties should be performed by staff officers at Formation Headquarters. Shortage of officers be made up by attracting and selecting more eligible youth. This will reduce work overload of officers, solve immediate problems of troops, reduce their stress level and suicidal tendency. Stop caste, regional or regimental bias among troops for promotions and postings. Stop employing the armed forces in aid to civil authorities and other police duties. Stop false allegations against military personnel, punish the culprits. Stop the leave policy discrimination, simplify the leave policy, ensure timely sanction of leave, and give written reasons for denial of leave. Streamline the tenures of units and Army personnel in counter-insurgency and high-altitude field areas to reduce war fatigue. Reduce the frequency of postings of officers and move of Army units. Take constructive steps to reduce mental health problems, domestic violence, substance abuse, and divorce. Take strict action against the civil officials who doesn't solve the problems of soldiers like domestic issues. There is an urgent need to establish more armed forces tribunals with efficient judges at many places in India to ensure quick solutions to the pending court cases of military personnel. Individual level measures are: actively promote buddy system by providing a buddy to every soldier, preferably from same state and ethnic background, to share their problems and take care of each other. A buddy should act as companion, confidant, and help to reduce fears and apprehensions of his buddy soldier. An alert buddy should notice the abnormal behavioral changes or suspicious activities like suicidal tendencies and report the matter to the superior immediately. Improve emotional connectivity with the family, friends, and social support. Limit the availability of psychiatric medicines. Restrict access to suicidal medium like toxic substances, guns, rope, knife, poison, etc. Psychological level measures are: promote optimism, ensure mental health services and crisis counseling on priority. Awareness among the soldiers about suicide, risk factors, warning signs, and preventive measures be taught. Every unit should have a few officers, junior leaders, and religious teachers trained in elementary counseling functions. Timely counseling can prevent many potential suicide and fratricide cases. Regular compulsory yoga and meditation sessions will help soldiers to cope up with stress. Intensity of stress will be different in different soldiers and will be based on the perceptions and responses of those trying to adapt to the challenges of everyday life. These stresses become severe due to prolonged deployment in challenging environments. Hence, reduce prolonged deployment of troops in challenging environments by periodical rotation of troops. Commanders should ensure necessary psychiatric support to the needy soldiers. Mere teaching of stress theories in various courses, military units and formations is not the remedy to manage stress. Efforts should be made to overcome the factors that cause stress so that the suicides and killings are minimized. Stress Amelioration Action Plan, that is SAP, must continue and to be made more effective. Solve the issues like frustrations, social inequalities, and discrimination faced by soldiers. Improve interpersonal relations between officers and soldiers. Some of the concrete recommendations to address the issues of suicides and killings in our army are given below. Suggested cadre review for rank structure and promotion. An officer should be commissioned into army as a captain and abolish the rank of lieutenant. Captains to be promoted to the rank of major after 3 years of service. Majors to become lieutenant colonel after putting 6 years of service. And first selection board for promotion to the rank of colonel should be with 9 years of service. All other lieutenant colonel to be promoted to time scale colonel with 12 years of service. Selection board for promotion of colonels to the rank of brigadier to be held with 12 years of service. Rest of the colonels should be promoted to the rank of time scale brigadier with 15 years of service. Subsequently, every after 3 years a selection board for promotion to the next rank to be held. Timescale promotions to be ensured for each rank from 3 years of the selection grade date. This will help to make the Army an attractive career for officers. Retirement age be made 60 years for officers and 55 years for PBOR, along with alternative job in civil. Grade pay should be more than that of the civilian counterparts with a similar service bracket. Recruit maximum short service officers to compensate the shortage of officers and ensure their placement to the other government services on release from military service. Separately account the civilian staff of Ministry of Defense, DRDO, ordnance factories, etc. for budget allocation, pay and pension, and not with the armed forces. Make such institutions accountable through project audits. 100% family accommodation be provided in peace station and separated family quarters closer to the field area. The bureaucrats and civilian staff of MOD should be moved out of the cozy AC rooms of New Delhi and attached or posted in the field areas and difficult conflict zones to have a first-hand experience of difficulties faced by our soldiers. Then they will not deny or delay the desired status pay and allowances, packages and welfare incentives to military personnel. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the suicides and killings in the armed forces personnel indicate that the stress is very high and need to be managed well on priority. At a time when the geopolitical challenges, especially with escalations along the border by Pakistan and China combined, are already a worry for India, a weak armed force with low morale is not desirable. It will add to our vulnerabilities and become a threat to our national security. Our mighty armed forces that unite India falling prey to bureaucratic neglects of Ministry of Defense and degradation of status by successive pay commissions should be stopped and their status to be ensured on top priority through legislation. It is the moral responsibility of the government to take immediate corrective measures and reforms to keep up the Indian military to be our nation's pride as ever. Jai Hind.